But, you know, no drug's perfect. And there are not many people with this disease. Now, one thing about rare diseases that I've learned over 20 years of following them is that when there's a treatment for a disease, even a very, like especially a very rare disease, people start to get diagnosed more and more. It's a very odd dynamic, but it's kind of a statistical thing where you may not respond to a survey if you don't know what disease the patient has. And if you know what disease the patient has and now there's a treatment for it, you're kind of more aware of it, and you might respond to the survey and say, actually, yeah, I do have 3 people with 𝗠𝗿𝗄𝗏𝗏𝗍. Or somebody asks, do you have any patients with 𝗠𝗿𝗄𝗏𝗏𝗍𝗏, you might say, no, I never heard of that. You know, but if the company's out there doing trials, reminding you to look for patients, so, oh yeah, 𝗠𝗿𝗄𝗏𝗏𝗍, I know 2 patients with that. I thought there was nothing for them. No, there's a new drug for it? Oh, amazing, great. We'll get them under treatment right away. So you end up finding double, triple, quadruple. In fact, Gaucher disease from Genzyme, the first ever drug of its kind that started this enzyme replacement therapy revolution. And this is why this stock's so easy to understand, is that Wall Street, behind me, is very used to lysosomal storage diseases. Everyone my age cut their teeth on these lysosomal storage diseases because there were a bunch of stocks that dealt with them. These days there aren't really anymore, because many of them that could be treated got treated, but now we got a new one. But in the old days, we spent a lot of our time on Wall Street looking at these stocks. So in any event, we got a new one, but this is so easy to understand because it's like Fast and Furious. This is just the Fast and Furious 8, Fast and Furious 9. You know what you're dealing with. Enzyme replacements are really easy to understand once you understand the first one. So anyway, the point I was making is that Cerezyme started off where they said they were only going to see 500 patients. They thought they'd see 500 patients. They ended up treating 5,000 patients on drug right now, or at least at peak. They made new treatments that replaced, I wouldn't say replaced Cerezyme, but took some patients away from Cerezyme. So, you know, they found 10 times more patients with Gaucher than they thought they'd find. And again, if you know, if a disease gets more awareness, you know, people start to find it. And it's a good thing. The company makes more money, but more importantly, more and more people get to get treated. And I found this was going to be the case with toxoplasmosis. One of the reasons they raised the price was to raise awareness of the disease and make more treatments for it and do all kinds of things. There's a healthy symbiosis with the drug industry and physicians. And of course it can be corrupted by companies like Purdue or whatever, but at the end of the day, the more people, for rare diseases, the more people that know about them, the more companies out there helping folks understand rare diseases, I think the better, but that's a longer story. In some cases, you know, with CTX, it was really important to get the word out there that this disease even existed, because nobody really had ever heard of it. And CTX, if you don't treat it early, you get irreversible damage. And enzyme replacement therapies, that's the case too. So you might say, what does a drug company have to do with educating doctors? Well, you go to med school, you don't remember every rare disease you learned about. And again, with 𝗠𝗿𝗄𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 associated neurodegeneration, or FSGS, focal segmental glomerulosclerosis. These are some of the diseases that I either made the first drug for ever or acquired the first drug ever. And these diseases, I mean, you go to med school, you're never going to remember these diseases again. There's 7,000 human diseases. Nobody can name them all. Nobody except me. But the point is that, you know, reminding doctors with even just a flyer, or in the case of CTX, what we did was CTX causes irreversible brain damage. And we got patients, but before that happens, they get glaucoma. So we told eye doctors, watch your glaucoma patients, they might have CTX. And even if one kid, juvenile glaucoma, adolescent glaucoma, even if one kid has glaucoma that gets referred to go on our drug, well, drug's very expensive, so that's nice for us, but you save the kid from mental retardation. I mean, so who's going to tell the ophthalmologists, hey, watch out, you know, if you got kids with glaucoma that are unexplained, they could have CTX. Ophthalmologists don't know anything about this disease. They don't even know what it stands for or what it means. So educating them with medical symposia, flyers, things like that, just reminding them, probably saved lives and made us money too. So there's a little bit of that goes on where, that's one of the ways you find these patients. A lot of times with rare diseases, it takes 10 years to get diagnosed and people give up. They don't know what's going on, The other interesting thing is the rare disease business is a global business. This is not well understood, is that the US is just one country. It's usually the biggest country, but it's not the whole pie. In fact, for some rare diseases, it's only 30% of revenue. That's unusual in pharma. Usually it's much, much, much bigger. This could be as much as 80% in some cases. And you might say, well, Martin, these are $500,000 drugs. How in the world does anybody else afford them? It's a fascinating question. In Brazil, you're constitutionally guaranteed healthcare. And rare disease companies will sue the Brazilian government. They'll actually work with the patient, sue the Brazilian government and say, I'm constitutionally obligated to receive this drug. It's $500,000. You have to pay. The government of Brazil has to pay. Now, Brazil's a big country. A lot of people live there. So Brazil is often the number 2 or number 3 rare disease market. Rare diseases are also big where there's in-marriage or consanguineous reproduction, inbreeding. And in the Middle East, there's often consanguineous, reproduction. And that can often lead to some of these rare diseases. So you go to these big population countries. Now there's some that just can't afford it, like Nigeria, Pakistan, Indonesia. They're not great, but oftentimes, when it's paid for at the government level, there's often this willingness to pay for this one-off thing, especially if it's a dying kid. Most countries have a GDP. They got serious treasury. They can send a check for $1 million or $2 million, and you collect that from every country for the 5 kids here, the 25 kids in Italy, the 7 kids in Slovenia. They'll pay, and it may take some time, but they'll pay. And you also give the drug. You do the right thing. If they don't pay, they don't pay, but you get them on the treatment, no matter what. In terms of prevalence, again, you never know how many people have these diseases. And if you look at the history of the other ERTs, the average ERT, that was at least on the Spruce slide, shows about $400 million in revenue. And one of the things you could do, again, you're talking to the guy who did it, is if the incidence prevalence is a little lower than you thought, you bump the price a little bit. In terms of making the patient funnel and modeling it, you have the prevalence, which is people with the disease, and then you have 2 changes every year. How many people are born and how many people die. And that's it. So people who are born, you're going to want them on treatment right away. People who die are no longer modelable in your revenue estimates, sadly, for both them and the company. But the younger people will do better because they're going to be treated right away. The older patients might have irreversible damage. They still might get treated in an attempt to, prolong their life, hopefully. So anyway, that's kind of the story of these drugs. But again, the story of Biomarin holding on to all, building this great portfolio of small rare disease drugs, and then saying, so we don't want them anymore, let's just go for the gold, we're bored, we need a big drug. And they kind of ruined, in a lot of ways, ruined their company. So, really crazy thing that they did. It's almost surprising they didn't even go more all in and sell the current portfolio, but they just basically said, we're not going to develop any more of these, so let's give them over to other smaller companies. So when I say patients per year, it's really just how many patients are on drug, because it's every year you got to pay. And if the company feels there are not going to be that many patients, maybe you charge $750,000. If you feel there are going to be a lot of patients, maybe you charge $300,000. There's weight-based dosing as well. It's not a trick, but it's often what's done. A little baby needs less drug than an adult, but you do the weight-based dosing on the price it for the baby or the child, and as the child grows, that $300,000 customer might be a $600,000 customer. That's what happened with 𝗥𝗡𝗧𝗜𝗢. So there's a lot of ways to make sure kind of you're going to get the revenue you want. Now, if it's a truly rare disease like SLY syndrome, which is MPS 7, MPS is mucopolysaccharidosis. It's very similar to lysosomal. It is lysosomal storage disease, but it's its own class. And MPS 7 has a drug called 𝗕𝗡𝗡𝗦, which only sells $20 million in revenue because there's like 8 people who have this disease. And that's fine. But, for CAPR, I mean, we know there's hundreds of people at the very least that have the disease, and more likely, just in the US, I think, and more likely than that, there's maybe 1,000 people globally that could take it and pay for it. So I think it's going to be a pretty handsome drug. But, and the team from Spruce worked at Biomarin, so it's a pretty good management team. And board in that regard. So we'll see how it goes, but it's a good long. It's not the only long. There's 𝗥𝗢𝗘𝗢, 𝗙𝗢𝗡𝗢𝗢, Sarepta, there's a bunch of stocks I like. So it's not like there's one stock to rule them all. I think anybody who tells you to go all in on one thing it's not doing you any favors. Hope you like the story time. IonQ is down. In fact, Rigetti is now almost down. What a roller coaster. It was up 7 or 8% or something crazy like that. You'll love to see it. The volatility is welcome to anybody long derivatives. It's this baby, man. Baby's crying like crazy. I'm not feeling that. I don't think I've ever liked Arvinas. Yeah, DDDDS, how do you find the patients? It's a very dark art. I, in fact, pat myself on the back, but this is a question I've looked at my whole life. It's a good question, Big Buck. I didn't think that our child would be anything but very healthy and happy, and I'm very lucky that that's exactly what happened. But I do understand, that some kids will not be healthy, and that's, just such a tragedy. Now, I've always thought I felt the plight of parents with rare diseases, the kids with rare diseases. Now I think I understand it a little bit better. It's really must be the most brutal thing. And again, that's why the drug business, is a good business. The amount of people who hate pharmaceuticals is just insane and unprecedented. If your kid was diagnosed with a rare disease and the doctor said, this used to be fatal, but there's a drug now. I mean, you kiss the ground of the drug company that made that, right? The feet of the people who made it. I would. Say, thank you so much for caring about my little disease, this little tiny illness that you decided to take the trouble and make this drug and save my kid's life. What can I do to thank you? It's like, but people only have scorn for drug companies, and it's really a terrible thing because people at drug companies are people too. They're not, they have families, bless you, baby. They have families that have cancer and Alzheimer's and rare diseases. It's not, in fact, a lot of the people that worked at the rare disease companies were rare disease, families, parents afflicted with their families having a kid with rare diseases. So it's really sad that people demonize the industry. We want, I'm not picking on any specific company here, but the companies that we root for versus the companies that need us to root for them, sometimes they're very different. And to me, it's very, very sad because, incentives do rule the world. I think virtually every drug company is great. And if you disagree, watch another channel. I'm not here to make any friends. They pretty much raised what they need to raise. Yeah, they raised using the 5-day closing average. I don't know why the bankers convinced them of that. All right, quantum's starting to fall here. Love to see it. IonQ down 4%. What's the Fib say? Fibonacci, I knew Fibonacci's grandson, he owes me money. I trolled Vlad Tenev a little bit. He was like, we have Fibonacci, and I was like, do you have the Lucas numbers? It's a math joke for any of you math jokers. They always do the Fibonacci, but what about Lucas? Trying to tell me Lucas numbers are less important? How about some golden ratio? I actually did see, I think I saw a chart package that had golden ratio. No, most management teams just listen to the bankers jibber. This company had been kind of cash starved for a while, and the stock price just flew, so not surprising the investors are a little price sensitive, but yeah, you know, I wish they did it at the market. But they also did it very quickly, apparently. But supposedly there are some long-term investors that are very interested in it, so I'm glad to hear that. It'd be great to make a baby thought decoder like, I am hungry. Yet again, I am hungry. Is connecting to GPT. Mother, I am tired, and I'm crying for no reason. They say fully useful quantum computing are at least a decade away. Quantum computing available today barely exceed 1,000 qubits. Actually, none of them really have 1,000 qubits. But they would require 1 million to perform useful tasks. That's not even true unless the fidelity improved too. Oh my gosh. Wifey made me some amazing food unsolicited. That's why she's the best. Yogurt from scratch, that is an Albanian thing called 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏. Yeah, IBM's on 1,000 qubits, yeah. So maybe quantum dropping on the Jeffrey's call. I don't know anything about Pally, to be honest. Well, Godel isn't trading software, it's information software. But yeah, you can definitely use it for Germany. Oh yeah, I've looked at Abiona, of course. Favorite rapper from New York, I mean, 𝗕𝗓𝗓, I guess, 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗃. Yeah, I don't know, Thick. I think they just wanted to do a deal, and they did a deal, and the, you know, pipes always, like, I don't know if you've ever done a pipe, but pipes always kind of come with a deep discount. Not always, but the stock just tripled. I mean, you know, it's 7x'd. I assume they'd have up to 3 million shares of dilution in my model, so I'm pretty happy. Just 1.5. We have a house over there, Mike. I'm not going to split my time between New York and SF, but I am definitely going to spend time there. SF is the place to be right now, man. Figma recommendation? Have I ever talked about Figma? Some of you guys make up some of the recommendations I've given. Yeah, San Francisco has a lot of growth. I like SPRB. Superb. I got in at like 35. I still think it's going to go to 500 or more. It seems like Adam Feuerstein's like throwing some shade at me. I mean, in his twisted head, he probably thinks I tried to make the stock go up for some reason. And I wish I had that power, because then I'd send quantum to zero. No, I did not, Natty. I'm not short open, but I think it's a short. You're telling me what my lane is? That's amazing. Like, you know me. Oh, this is the footwall guy. Did some research. I've been talking about that all day, John. We'll see, Henry. They're probably going to do more dilution, too. There's a thing called mark-to-market, sick doctor. I don't really buy it, Brian. I just look at stocks, and if they come up, they come up. People ask me to look at them. I'm not a professional investor anymore. I mean, beneath the prize, that's what QUBT is doing. They're pretty smart. I have many skills, Brian. I program, I'm an entrepreneur. I don't need to scratch any itches. Yeah, I'm probably going to stick to software. But, you know, I look at stocks of all types, and like, having some training in biotech helps me look at biotech stocks, but I can get training in energy stocks or any other stock. Don't know anything about Santa, really. At one time I saw they had a press release. Yeah, I kind of want to take it easy, but CAPR is coming. I really want to short that. Yeah, I mean, we know a lot about Peter Chapman. I heard a rumor he's starting a new quantum company. CAPR's coming soon. Next 30 days. I gotta get ready. It's gonna be a profit extravaganza. I don't know why they go all the way up here. Maybe we need better windows. Best city in the world. CAPR is, data's coming out. Yeah, try not to make trading fun, because then you're gonna get addicted to like price changes. It's not supposed to be fun. You're focused on P&L and fundamental research. Well, really fundamental research. Forget the P&L as well, because you get obsessed with looking at stock price changes. I don't think so, Paul. I just don't have the time to be in that business.
I'm building a very successful software company. So that's my main gig. And my baby just keeps me from sleeping. And you guys keep me from sleeping. I haven't even started shorting yet, so I haven't. What's wrong with you? Go to Destiny, go to Aiden Ross, leave me alone. We have 15 people work at the company, 13 or 12 of which are engineers. We get data from exchanges, of course, which is where most people get them. And yeah, it's a really big job. We use something called ClickHouse. It's become somewhat more popular over the years. It's a very good database. This Russian guy, Crazy Russian, made an extremely fast database. We use Kafka. Kind of event-based architecture. But it's not without its challenges. Financial programming is one of the hardest ways to build a system. I mean, it's just so hard.